Have you ever wondered about that woman who seems utterly indifferent to everything yet manages to drive men absolutely wild with obsession? Why is it that the more interest you display, the further he retreats, yet when you disappear, he emerges desperate and seeking? The solution lies in what psychology terms the butterfly effect of detachment, a phenomenon Carl Jung described as awakening the hunter archetype within the masculine psyche. In this presentation, you'll uncover how a simple shift in your approach can trigger a chain reaction in his mind, transforming you from a woman he overlooks into one he cannot stop thinking about. However, pay attention. This isn't another collection of shallow advice about playing hard to get. We're discussing pure behavioral science, grounded in decades of research on masculine mental processes. If you're exhausted from chasing, from always being the one initiating conversations, from feeling perpetually available, yet never prioritized, then brace yourself for a revelation that will completely alter your relationship dynamics. Before I unveil the 3 fundamental pillars of the butterfly effect, let me pose a question that will astound you. Did you know that 87% of women do precisely the opposite of what awakens the masculine hunting instinct? And if you're watching this content, you're very likely among them. To comprehend the butterfly effect of detachment, we must first dive into the neuroscience of masculine desire. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, identified primitive archetypes embedded in the masculine collective unconscious, with one of the most powerful being the hunter. This archetype wasn't developed to pursue what's constantly available, but rather what represents a challenge, something rare, something that might escape at any moment. When you're always accessible, always responding instantly, always providing clear signals of interest, you're inadvertently deactivating this ancestral archetype. It's like attempting to hunt an animal that approaches you and lies at your feet. There's no challenge, no conquest, no adrenaline. The masculine brain, programmed by millions of years of evolution, simply cannot value what it didn't need to earn. But here's the crucial point most people misunderstand. Detachment doesn't mean being rude or disrespectful. We're discussing strategic indifference, a calculated absence that creates what psychologists call productive tension. It's the same dynamic that makes a suspense film captivating. It's not what's being shown that holds our attention, but what's being concealed, what's absent, what might still occur. Neuroscience shows us that when something is always available, the brain stops producing dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and motivation. But when uncertainty exists, when there are gaps to be filled, when there's mystery, the masculine brain enters maximum alertness, dramatically increasing dopamine production and creating a vicious cycle of obsessive thoughts about you. Before I reveal what truly activates the hunting instinct in the masculine mind, I need you to do something quick. Leave your like here now, because this shows the algorithm that this topic matters and helps this content reach more women who also need to hear this message. And tell me in the comments, have you experienced that situation of always being available to a man, yet feeling him drift further away? Share below, because I'll be monitoring your stories. And of course, subscribe to the channel to not miss upcoming content, because what follows will show you exactly how to transform that distance into genuine desire. I'll now reveal the 3 pillars of the butterfly effect of detachment. Once you understand this, you'll never view relationships the same way again. The first pillar of the butterfly effect of detachment is mastering the art of magnetic absence. But be careful. We're discussing something far more sophisticated than simply vanishing. Magnetic absence is based on the psychological principle of perceived scarcity, where your presence becomes valued precisely because it's not always guaranteed. Let's imagine 2 scenarios. In the first, you always respond to his messages immediately. You're always available when he wants to see you, always canceling your plans to be with him. In the second scenario, you have a rich and interesting life. You take time to respond because you're genuinely busy with important things, and sometimes you're unavailable because you have commitments you value. Which of these two women sparks more curiosity and desire in the masculine mind? The answer is obvious, but the implementation isn't. Magnetic absence isn't about games or manipulation. It's about developing a life so interesting and complete that your attention becomes naturally scarce and therefore valuable. When you disappear for hours or days, he doesn't think she's ignoring me. He thinks, what could she be doing that's so fascinating she doesn't have time for me? This absence creates what Jung called anima projection. He begins filling the gaps of your absence with fantasies about you, idealizing who you are and what you represent in his life. His mind creates stories about you, imagines scenarios, projects qualities you might not even possess. And the longer you remain absent within reasonable limits, the more elaborate and positive these projections become. But here's the secret few know. Magnetic absence must be interspersed with moments of intense presence. It's like music. It's not just the notes that create the melody, but also the silences between them. When you return after a period of absence, your presence has much greater impact than if you were always available. The second pillar of the butterfly effect is what I call behavioral mystery. Here, we enter even deeper territory of masculine psychology, the primitive need to decipher and conquer. The masculine brain is programmed to solve problems and face challenges. When you become too predictable, when he can read you completely, you stop being an interesting challenge. Behavioral mystery doesn't mean being fake or contradictory. It means having layers, depth, aspects of your personality that reveal themselves gradually. It's being the woman he thinks he knows, but who always surprises him with something new. It's having your own opinions that sometimes differ from his. It's having passions and interests he hasn't fully explored. It's having a rich inner life he's still discovering. One of the most powerful aspects of behavioral mystery is what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. Imagine a slot machine. It doesn't pay out every time, but when it does, the impact is much greater than if it always did. The same happens with the attention and affection you show. When you're always sweet and attentive, this becomes the norm and loses impact. But when you alternate moments of intense affection with moments of emotional independence, each loving gesture becomes precious and memorable. This doesn't mean being bipolar or emotionally unstable. It means having a multifaceted personality where he never knows completely which version of you he'll encounter. The determined and independent woman, or the loving and affectionate woman, the mysterious and reflective woman, or the spontaneous and fun woman. This controlled unpredictability keeps his brain constantly stimulated and interested. The third, and perhaps most powerful pillar of the butterfly effect of detachment is emotional independence. This is the difference between a woman he sees as an option and a woman he sees as a priority. Emotional independence means your happiness and well-being don't depend on his validation or attention. You have a rich and complete emotional life with or without him. When a man realizes you don't need him to be happy, this awakens something primitive in his psyche. He doesn't want to be merely tolerated or accepted. He wants to be chosen, desired, valued. But this is only possible when you demonstrate that you have other options, other sources of joy and satisfaction in life. It's the fundamental paradox of relationships. You only become truly desirable when you show you don't need to be desired. Emotional independence manifests in various practical ways. It's not cancelling your plans with friends because he showed up last minute. It's having hobbies and passions that are yours alone, in which he's not included. It's being able to genuinely enjoy yourself, even when he's not present. It's not checking your phone every 5 minutes waiting for his message. It's having a life so interesting that sometimes you genuinely forget to respond because you were busy with something important to you. But the deepest aspect of emotional independence is the ability to be comfortable with your own company. When you genuinely like who you are, when you have a healthy relationship with yourself, this radiates an energy that is absolutely magnetic to men. They might not know how to explain what it is, but they sense you're different, that you have something special most women don't have. If this message resonated with you somehow, leave in the comments, "I don't beg for love." This simple phrase can be the first step toward attracting someone who truly values who you are. Now comes the most fascinating part, how these three pillars work together to create the butterfly effect of detachment. When you combine magnetic absence, behavioral mystery, and emotional independence, you create a perfect storm in the masculine mind. It's as if you plant a seed of curiosity that grows and multiplies exponentially. First, your absence makes him notice your absence. Then when you return, your behavioral mystery intrigues him and awakens his hunting instinct. Finally, your emotional independence makes him realize you're not an easy or guaranteed conquest. You're a prize that must be continuously earned. This combination creates a powerful psychological cycle. The more he thinks about you, the more interesting you become. The more interesting you become, the more he wants to conquer you. The more he wants to conquer, the more scarce you become. The higher he values your focus and company. What unfolds in his mind resembles a genuine emotional tempest. Throughout daylight hours, he catches himself wondering, why hasn't she replied yet? What could she possibly be doing? During nighttime, he finds himself creating scenarios involving you. His friends start noticing he mentions you regularly. He begins plotting ways to impress you, to capture your focus, to become more appealing to you. And here lies the magic of the butterfly phenomenon. A minor shift in your demeanor, ceasing to be constantly accessible, creates a massive chain reaction in his emotional world, like a butterfly flapping wings and generating a hurricane on the opposite side of the globe. Your strategic detachment awakens primitive forces in the masculine psyche that he never knew existed. There exists a critical moment in this process that you must be prepared to identify. It's the moment when his hunter instinct finally awakens completely and he breaks, meaning he stops trying to maintain control of the situation and begins actively pursuing you. This moment can manifest in various ways: more frequent and intense messages, desperate attempts to grab your attention, spontaneous invitations, or even a direct conversation about what he's experiencing. When this moment arrives, and if you implement the three pillars correctly, it will arrive. You have a crucial choice to make. If you surrender immediately and return to the old pattern of total availability, you might reverse all the progress made. The secret is recognizing this change in him, but continuing to maintain your new stance in a softened manner. It's like fishing. When the fish bites the bait, you don't pull the line immediately. You let it swim a bit before reeling in. This is the moment of greatest power you will have in the relationship dynamic. He finally realized your worth, finally understood that you are not an option among many, but a priority he might lose if he doesn't act. Use this moment wisely. Don't be cruel or vindictive, but also don't immediately return to the pattern of always being available. Maintain the balance you created, but allow him to feel that his efforts are being recognized and rewarded. If you understood the power of this critical moment, write in the comments, "I recognize my worth." This phrase can be your anchor to never return to the pattern that made you suffer. Before continuing, I need to alert you about the most common mistakes that can completely destroy the butterfly effect of indifference. The first and most devastating is inconsistency. If you implement these pillars for a few days and then return to the old pattern, you not only lose all progress, but you can also create confusion and distrust in him. Consistency is fundamental for him to understand that this is a genuine change in you, not a temporary strategy. The second mistake is overdoing it. Remember, we talked about strategic indifference. If you disappear for weeks, if you become genuinely cold and distant, if you create too much mystery to the point where he can't reach you in any way, you might make him simply give up. The goal is to awaken the hunter, not make him conclude that the hunt is impossible. The third mistake, and perhaps the most subtle, is implementing these strategies with the wrong mindset. If you're doing this just to manipulate him or as a form of revenge, your energy will transmit that, and men are much more intuitive than we think. The butterfly effect of indifference works best when it comes from a genuine place of self-development and self-esteem, not from mind games or manipulation. Let me share with you some real examples of how the butterfly effect of indifference works in practice. Marina was 28 years old and had been dating a man for 6 months who clearly saw her only as a convenient option. She was always available, always responded immediately, always cancelled her plans when he showed up last minute. Result, he only looked for her when he was bored or when his other options weren't available. When Marina discovered these concepts, she gradually began implementing the 3 pillars. First, she stopped responding immediately, not as a game, but because she genuinely began occupying herself with other interesting activities. She returned to painting something she had abandoned, started a dance course, and began valuing time with her friends more. Her absence became magnetic because it was genuine. In 3 weeks, his behavior changed completely. The messages, which were once sporadic and casual, became frequent and affectionate. He began planning meetings in advance, stopped cancelling last minute, and, more importantly, began showing genuine interest in her life, asking questions about her activities and showing curiosity about her new hobbies. Another case is Juliana, who was in a 2-year relationship that had become completely monotonous. They lived together, but he treated her more like a housemate than a girlfriend. She realized she had become too predictable, that he knew exactly how she would react in any situation. Juliana mainly implemented behavioral mystery and emotional independence. She began going out alone. Sometimes she developed new interests that didn't include him, and stopped being always the understanding and flexible person. Occasionally, she expressed opinions that surprised him, showed facets of personality he didn't know. In a few months, he began looking at her with different eyes, as if discovering her for the first time. If you identified with these real examples, comment here, "I am priority." Because when you declare this, you begin attracting exactly the type of love you deserve. Here's something most relationship videos don't mention. When you genuinely implement the butterfly effect of indifference, you don't just change the relationship dynamic, you transform as a person. Developing magnetic absence forces you to create a rich and interesting life. Cultivating behavioral mystery encourages you to explore different aspects of your personality. Building emotional independence makes you a more complete and self-confident person. The result is that you become genuinely more attractive, not just to him, but to all people around you. You develop what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you really are in all your complexity and authenticity. And ironically, the more independent you become from him, the more dependent he becomes on you. This transformation is visible not just in behavior, but in your energy. You walk differently, speak differently, have a different presence. People begin commenting that you're different, more confident, more interesting, and this change reflects not only in romantic relationships, but in all areas of your life, professional, social, family. One of the most interesting consequences of mastering the butterfly effect of indifference is how it affects all other relationships in your life. When you genuinely develop these 3 pillars, you naturally become more selective with your time and energy. You stop accepting mediocre treatment, not just from romantic partners, but from friends, family, and co-workers. Your new stance of emotional independence makes you attract better quality people to your life. People who value and respect your energy. Your behavioral mystery makes your social interactions more interesting and dynamic. Your magnetic absence makes people value your presence and attention more. It's a positive cycle that feeds back on itself. The more you value your own time and energy, the more others value it too. The more interesting you become to yourself, the more interesting you become to others. The more emotionally independent you become, the more people want to be near your positive and self-confident energy. How do you know if the butterfly effect of indifference is really working? There are clear signs that indicate you've awakened the hunter instinct in him. First, the frequency and quality of his messages change drastically. He stops sending those generic, "Hi, how are you?" and begins sending more elaborate messages, asking specific questions about your life, commenting on things you mentioned previously. Second, he begins making plans in advance. Instead of showing up last minute, expecting you to be available, he begins planning around your schedule. He asks when you're free, suggests specific activities, demonstrates he's thinking about you two in advance. Third, he begins showing genuine curiosity about your life. He asks questions about your hobbies, your friends, your projects. He remembers details you mentioned and asks about them later. He demonstrates interest in getting to know better the multifaceted woman you've become. Fourth, and perhaps most significant, he begins making effort to impress you. He dresses better when he's going to see you, plans more elaborate encounters, talks about his achievements and projects, clearly trying to show he's worthy of your attention and interest. If these attitudes have already started appearing in your relationship, comment here, "I am priority." Because when you put yourself in this place, he has no other option but to chase after you. The real secret of the butterfly effect of indifference isn't just in implementing it, but in maintaining it as a natural part of your personality long-term. This means that even after he breaks and begins actively pursuing you, you need to continue being the woman who awakened this interest in him. Many women make the mistake of completely relaxing as soon as they conquer the desired attention. They return to the old pattern of total availability, lose the mystery, abandon their emotional independence, and inevitably his interest begins decreasing again because they return to being predictable and always available. The secret is integrating these pillars as a permanent part of who you are, not as strategies you use when you need to reconquer attention, but as fundamental aspects of your personality. You continue having a rich and interesting life because this makes you happy, not just because it keeps him interested. You maintain your emotional independence because this is healthy for you, not just because it's attractive to him. Here we arrive at the most important point of all. The butterfly effect of indifference only truly works when it comes from an authentic place. If you're pretending to be mysterious, if you're forcing an independence you don't feel, if you're creating absence just as manipulation, this won't work long-term. Men, although they often can't verbalize it, are very sensitive to authentic feminine energy versus manipulative energy. The real magic happens when you genuinely become a more interesting, more independent, more multifaceted woman. When your absence is the result of a rich life, when your mystery comes from real depth, when your emotional independence is the fruit of genuine self-esteem, then you become truly irresistible. And here's the final irony. When you implement these pillars authentically, you often discover that maybe he's not so important anymore. Your life becomes so interesting and satisfying that you naturally become more selective about who you choose to share your time and energy with. Sometimes, the greatest power of the butterfly effect of indifference is discovering you no longer need to use it. If this part spoke directly to your heart, write in the comments, "I choose to be authentic." This phrase will be your public commitment to living real relationships and not appearances. The butterfly effect of indifference isn't just a strategy to awaken masculine interest. It's a life philosophy that transforms you into a genuinely magnetic and self-confident woman. When you master the three pillars, magnetic absence, behavioral mystery, and emotional independence, you're not just changing your dynamic with him, you're becoming the best version of yourself. Remember, small changes can generate gigantic transformations, like a butterfly beating its wings. Your decision to value your time more, to cultivate genuine mystery, and to develop emotional independence can cause a hurricane of positive changes in all areas of your life. If this video made sense to you, if you recognize patterns in your own life that need changing, then do your part, leave your, like so more women have access to this transformative knowledge. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications because every week I bring new insights about relationship psychology based on Carl Jung's teachings and modern neuroscience. And tell me here in the comments which of the 3 pillars you feel you need to develop more in your life. Your answer might inspire other women going through the same situation. Remember, you're not alone in this journey of self-discovery and feminine empowerment. In the next video, we'll explore the 5 psychological triggers that make him think about you obsessively, even more advanced techniques for mastering the art of authentic attraction. Don't miss it. And only those who are truly committed to their transformation manage to implement these deep psychoanalytic teachings. Your journey to become a magnetic and unforgettable woman begins now. The power is in your hands. Use it wisely.